During World War II, tank production was an essential part of the war effort, with factories in the United States, Soviet Union, Germany, and the United Kingdom producing vast numbers of armored vehicles. These tanks played a critical role in the battles across Europe, North Africa, and the Eastern Front, and the ability to manufacture them quickly and in large quantities often determined the success or failure of military campaigns. Factories were retooled or newly built to meet the enormous demand for tanks, with mass production becoming a hallmark of wartime industry. In the United States, the automotive industry, particularly factories such as Chrysler Tank Arsenal, led the way in the tank production. The American war economy was able to produce vast numbers of M4 Sherman tanks with a total output of around 49,000 by the war's end. The US production lines were highly efficient, and the use of standardized parts allowed for quicker assembly. The Sherman became a workhorse for the Allies, used in both the European and Pacific theaters of war. American factories were capable of producing tanks in large numbers, making the US one of the largest suppliers of tanks during the war. The Soviet Union also emphasized mass production, especially after the relocation of many of its factories eastward to avoid destruction by the advancing German forces. One of the largest and most famous tanks factories was the Uralwagonzavod in Nizhny Tagil, which produced the T-34. The T-34 was one of the most effective tanks of the war, with a combination of strong armor, firepower, and mobility. The Soviet focus on simplicity and durability allowed for the production of over 80,000 T-34s, a number unmatched by any other tank design during the war. Despite early setbacks caused by the relocation of factories, Soviet industrial output played a significant role in pushing back the German advance on the Eastern Front. In Germany, tank production was focused on creating technologically advanced but complex vehicles such as the Tiger and Panzer tanks. German factories, including those operated by companies like Henschel and Porsche, produced fewer tanks than their elite counterparts due to the intricate designs and higher manufacturing costs. Additionally, Germany's industrial production suffered from shortages of raw material and fuel compounded by elite bombing campaigns that targeted key factories and infrastructure. Despite these challenges, German tanks were known for their heavy armor and firepower, although their numbers could not match the mass production seen in the Soviet Union or the US. In the United Kingdom, tank production was crucial, especially during the early stages of the war. British factories like Vauxhall and Leyland Motors produced tanks such as the Matilda II and the Cromwell, which were used in campaigns in Europe and North Africa. However, British tank production was smaller in scale compared to the US and Soviet Union, and the country relied on American-produced tanks through the Lend-Lease program. The British approach focused on adapting tanks for different roles, including the development of cruiser and infantry tanks designed for speed and armor support, respectively. The process of tank production involved several stages, starting with the design and engineering. Engineers worked to create tanks that could withstand the regions of battle, balancing armor, speed, and firepower. Factories that assembled tanks using raw material like steel and rubber, employing thousands of workers. The assembly line method allowed for faster production, as components like the engine, hull, and turret were built separately before being assembled into a complex tank. After assembly, tanks underwent testing to ensure they were battle-ready. Despite their remarkable industrial output, tank production faced numerous challenges. In Germany, the shortage of essential materials and fuel slowed down production, while elite bombing raids disrupted supply chain. The Soviet Union had to overcome the difficulty of relocating factories and operating in harsh conditions. In the US and Britain, logistical challenges arose in transporting finished tanks to the front lines, especially across the Atlantic Ocean or through dangerous territories. Overall, tank production during World War II was a monumental effort that reflected the industrial capabilities of the nations involved. The ability to mass-produce tanks, particularly in the US and Soviet Union, allowed these countries to field large numbers of armored vehicles, which were crucial in achieving victory. The complexity of German tanks, while technologically advanced, ultimately limited their production capacity and contributed to the challenges they faced on the battlefield. The factories that produced these tanks became symbols of the war effort, representing the power of industrialization and its impact on modern warfare.